And here we'll now go into a bit more detail about the module system commands. We already saw how to find software module versions and how to load a module, but we're now going to look at that some more, and also how to unload modules and specific versions, as well as how to use module purge unless you are at PDC. And there is also a comment that if you are at Bianca, there is an UPPMAX module you need to load in order to set some, I'm guessing, environment variables so that things work as it should. And of course, you can list the loaded modules, and we can take a look at how to get more information about it with module show and module help. And there's module collections. So we just saw how to see which modules are available. Now let's also try and find versions of them. And if you have a specific software that you are interested in, then you could take a look at that and see if it's installed and also at which versions are installed. Do note one thing: when you are using modules, you should usually load a specific version, not just a default one. At some centers, you will actually get an error if you try to load the default one. That is, if you load, for instance, Python without giving a version. But there are other reasons why you should not just load the default one. Because often we will set the default version to be the one that we most recently installed, and that means that it will change under your feet, that you no longer get the version you thought you did. It's a different one than the one you used, and it could break your code, or it could just give different results. In any case, it's bad for reproducibility, which I misspelled, if you use suddenly a different version than the one you thought. So you should not use the default one unless you know it does not matter. And these are the ways that you go about finding specific versions. And we already tried that here. And module spider again are recommended at these centers. Module avail are recommended at UPPMAX and NSC, but there are situations where you want to use module spider to see if there are more versions that needs some prerequisites. So try, I'm guessing you already tried this, so there is one other thing that I want to say about this, which is for PDC. At PDC, there are more than one version of Python installed. There's also other things that has several versions. The thing is that there is regular Python, which you should not use, and then there is Cray Python, which is the one you should use. Cray Python does not have prerequisites, I believe, but that is the one, or maybe it has the PDC as prerequisite. But you should use Cray Python if there is at PDC. And I guess you can look at these here if you want to see the results on different systems, or you can just try it on your own. You could try and see if there's a difference between module avail Python and module spider Python. And if you are at, for instance, Dardel, then maybe it's going to have to be lowercase. Let's see what happens on NSC, on Tetralit. What happens if we are giving a lowercase Python instead of uppercase? Then we actually do not get these Python that we got before. So let us try and do Python uppercase, or first letter uppercase. And then you do get it. Again, module avail gave you those that did not have prerequisites. Module spider gives you those also that has prerequisites. So all of it. And there you see there is a difference in spelling. You cannot just type it with lowercase or uppercase. You have to check both if you don't find what you're looking for, because in most cases it is case sensitive. Loaded modules, you list it with module list or ML. It makes no difference which one you use. Module list or ML. Looks the same. And let's load some modules. You should try this also yourself now. And in order to load a module, of course, you need to know how. I showed you briefly that you load the prerequisite first, if there are any, and then you load the module itself. So let's try and take a look at GrowMax. Module spider GrowMax and see what we get. And we get these here. Let's try and look at one of them and see how we load it. The specific version. And it tells us not much here, but let's try and load it directly. I will just see what happens if I say module avail to it instead. Let's try and load it. And then do ML. And then it's loaded here. And I suggest that you try this out. Not necessarily with GrowMax or Python. Try do it with a specific software package that you are looking for. Go ahead and see if that is available on the system that you are. And if you're at a system that has prerequisites, check for the specific version so you can see how it is loaded and what needs to be loaded first. Python is always a good example if you don't know what to test with otherwise, because that has prerequisites at all the centers that does use prerequisites. There is also something here which is that if a prerequisite is GCC core something, and you later know you need OpenMPI, then you should load GCC directly. GCC core is part of GCC, but there are more to it than just GCC core, and you need that for many of the modules. So it's often easier to just load GCC itself instead of GCC core. For Python itself, it does not matter. There you just need GCC core, but I usually load GCC directly because I often need other Python modules, and many of those will need the full GCC. When you are loading, for instance, Python, you will also get a list of extensions that are included. So let's try and look at that again and see if they list that here on Tetralit. So module spider, and let's take this one here that we know has prerequisites. It actually tells us here that I included extensions, and these are the Python packages that I installed also together with Python. And you can see there are not very many, and the reason for that is that there are usually bundles of packages for Python and also for R. And those we can talk about in the specific section about software loading that we come to later. To load a module, as you have now seen me do several times, module load prerequisite if needed for a specific version, then load the module. And then when you have done that, you can try and do a module list and see that the output has changed. As I mentioned before, if there are prerequisites, you can load them on one line or you can load them on separate lines. If you load them separately, then after you loaded the prerequisite, usually it only has one option to load, and then you don't need to check which ones goes together, which are compatible, if you have several things to load. So that can make it easier. And I will just try and do a module unload on GrowMax and see what happens. And now I am back to only having these prerequisites I got before. Let's try remove those as well. You can also unload more than one module at a time. After that, we are back to only the sticky module with the environment variables that needs to be there. It can be removed if you do ---- force. I don't know if there are situations where you would want that, because usually these are things that are needed to get the system to work as it should. This example here for NSC is the one that I just showed you, except that I used a different Python version. And I can repeat it but I'm guessing that everyone already knows now how to find a module, how to check if it has prerequisites, checking with the version, and if it has, loading the prerequisite. Did I do wrong? I forgot the word load. So now it has the prerequisites, and now if I say module load and Python and hit tab, then it should suggest the ones that I can load. And it tells me that these versions of Python can all be loaded with this prerequisite here. So I could, for instance, say 3.11, and then I will load that. And as you can see here, when you load something, it's not uncommon that other things get loaded as well, together with it. Especially at the centers that do not have prerequisites, they often simply load the prerequisites together with the module itself. So in some cases, it's hidden that it only shows the module itself. So I all believe there are SciPy bundles on Tetralit. SciPy bundle are a bundle of Python packages that you can load together. It contains things like pandas and SciPy and other things. So what if you need to load several other modules? Can you load, how do you do that? How do you find out, for instance, which SciPy bundle would be compatible with the Python that you have now installed? Well, you can say mlav SciPy bundle, and then it should only show you the ones that you can load with the one you already loaded here. It did not look like there was even one that was compatible with Python 3.11.5. Let's look at that. It may be that we cannot load it with this version because not all the Python version has a compatible SciPy bundle. But at least it looks like we could load it with this build tool. So let's go ahead and try. Sometimes, if it cannot load it, it will complain. In other cases, that is a DADL. It will unload the things you have loaded that are not compatible and then reload compatible stuff instead. Here, there are simply no compatible SciPy bundle with this Python, but there is one for 3.11.3, I know. So if you want to unload modules, you do module unload or module minus the module. Or again, you can do module purge as long as you are not at PDC. I'm going to go ahead and try and do a module purge. And now it again is back to nothing at all except the sticky module. So at Tetralit, it's safe. It is safe also on UPPMAX now, but on Bianca you need to reload UPPMAX module. Otherwise, all is well. PDC, just don't do it. It's too much trouble. It's easier to log out and log in again, or to just unload it one at a time. So if you have a module that doesn't have prerequisites, then you can just unload the module and it should unload any prerequisite it itself loaded. If it has prerequisites, then those prerequisites will stay after you unload the module. So here's an example. You have loaded these things here, and you unload GCC. That goes away. The sticky modules stay. And I'm going to do another example here where I am going to load this here and see which GCCs I'm allowed to load. So again, you see I loaded these things here. I loaded GCC, I loaded Python, and I loaded this build tool module. Then let's try and remove Python, and let's this time use minus Python 3.11.5. And let's see what we have. As you can see, all these extra module things here that got loaded together with Python, they go away when you unload Python. But the prerequisites you loaded, they stay. And that is this example here. But what would happen then if we instead tried and unload the prerequisite? So let's try and load Python again. Here, we now have this loaded here. And now I'm going to try and unload one of Python's prerequisites. For instance, GCC. What happens then? Then at Tetralit, it reloads my Python to one that does not have a prerequisite. Or actually, that loads the stuff itself. So there you can do this. If you did this at HPC2N, for instance, you would instead get an error because you now tried to pull away the prerequisite under it. But on Tetralit, they have done so that they will reload something that will work anyway. And I already showed all these. And module purge I have also shown. It just takes everything and removes it. And it goes well, and it's a very easy way of working unless you're at PDC. But if you have gotten used to using module purge and then now are working at PDC, remember not to use it there. I have an exercise, and I would suggest to just do this quickly. Let's take 2 minutes and do it, and then we'll continue to module show because we are a little bit behind time now. So check how to load R, pick a version. Does it have prerequisites? Load prerequisites if there's any, and then load R, and then try do module list before and after, and see if it loaded more than you expected, and then try and unload stuff again. So let's take 2 minutes and test these things. So the command module show, and that can be used to list information about modules. If you are at one of the centers that are not hierarchical but has a flat structure, you can use it on all modules. If it's one that has hierarchical structure, you can only use it on the ones that are currently available to load. So once you can see what module avail. And NSC is actually only partially here on the flat structure because it has maybe a third of the modules that does actually have prerequisites. But let's try and say ML show for Python 3.11.5, and it shouldn't give us anything. It actually does. So it is flat in that matter. It actually gives us the information. And the information you are getting is what will happen when I load the module, which paths will be set, and which environments variables will be set. And that is useful, but it looks like it actually gave me some other stuff as well. I'm going to try and load these prerequisites so I can only get what I needed for this one module. Okay. Now I should be able to do module show on just the Python module, and I could that now. So now I actually are told these are the extensions. This is what get loaded together with the module. And these are the paths that will be set and the environment variables that will exist afterwards. For instance, there will be one that's called EB for easy build, root, and then the name of the module that you can use in order to go and look at the place where this software is actually installed. So these are useful. And another thing that is useful, which is available at many of the centers, is a build-env module. I believe on Tetralit, it is the one that is called, let's see, build tool easy build. I'm guessing that includes something like build and env. Build-env is a module that sets some environment variables that you can then use when you are doing make or compiling something, building something, instead of setting the full path to libraries and things like this. Module help. Let's try and see what happens if I do module help on Python 3.11.5. then you are told basically just what is this module, what's included with it. So less information than modules show, but still some useful information. I will just very quickly mention what a module collection is, but I'm not going to go through this. But if you're on Dardel specifically, it's very useful because that helps you with if you have a tendency to do module purge. If you do a module collection when you have just logged in, then you can just make one that contains these modules that needs to be there for environment to work correctly. And then you can just restore that collection each time you have done purge. But another thing is that many people put modules into their bash RC because then it's easy and it's already loaded when you're working with it, but it's not a good idea. And the reason for that is partially because the default can change, and partially because maybe you forget that you put things there and now you're trying to use some other version of this module or some other module that is conflicting with the prerequisites, and you get weird errors and don't know what the errors are because they are caused by what you have in your bash RC. So instead, make a module collection. And what you do then is that you load some modules that you know you need for your project. When you have loaded them, you say module save, and then you give some name to your collection, and then it saves that current collection of module to that. Then later you can maybe add to it. You can say load something more, and then module save again the collection. And then at some later point, you have logged in, logged out, unloaded stuff. You can just go ahead and reload everything with a module restore and the name of the collection. And that's very, very useful. So that is a good thing to do. And that is, as I said, safer than doing things in bash RC. I think that we are just going to go ahead and skip the rest of this since it's mainly things we already did. I think we should take the break now because we are behind. We are here. We should have had the break 10 minutes ago.